Hey guys, welcome back to another impressions video on the latest game I beat on the Nintendo Switch, and that game is Fire Emblem, The Three Houses, a 2019 release that I was eagerly anticipating on playing. As you guys know, I really enjoy the Fire Emblem games, even though I did not play the last one on the 3DS, Shadows of Valencia, I believe. That's on my to-do list, but I really wanted to play Three Houses based on all the critical acclaim and positive reviews that the game received. And the game just looked overall pretty interesting as far as being a new entry and the ways that the gameplay was set up. So yeah, I really enjoyed this game. I guess I'm going to start talking about the story. Most people already beat this game, but as usual, I'm not going to spoil anything. Just give my overall thoughts and impressions on what I thought the story was. And I decided to play this game with the Golden Deer House, and I'm really glad I did. Of course, I don't know exactly the or the outcome of playing with the Black Eagles or the Blue Lions. As some of you may know, you have that choice. You have to basically pick the house you want to represent in this game. And again, I decided to go with the Golden Deer, and I thought their story, if I had to guess when compared to the other two, is probably the best like ending in a way, just because of things that happen along the game, that lead me to believe the other two houses are a little bit more dramatic and have a little bit more of a of tension going on in their storylines. But I thought the Golden Deer was a pretty very well put together story, maybe a little bit uneventful if I'm thinking what the other two storylines may throw at me, when I replayed this game, which by the way, I already started a new file playing with the Blue Lions. I'm sorry, the Black Eagles, because I think, or Elderguard, led by Elderguard, because I believe, based on my playthrough with the Golden Deer, chapter or house, I think the Black Eagle one is going to be not vastly different, but it's going to offer the most differences when compared to the Blue Lions. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you guys can let me know in the comments if you guys have beaten and completed all three I guess houses for the game. But again, I was very pleasantly surprised and enjoyed my time with the Golden Deer house. But the story overall, it's it has the typical Fire Emblem / JRPG tropes. You wake up, you can't remember anything that happened. Another chapter of amnesia attacking your character. And that's how the game starts. You work for your father as a mercenary, and you quickly get involved into having to help the students of the Garg Monastery, I think it's called. And that's when everything unfolds. You basically help them in the quote-unquote tutorial battle early in the game, and you have to make a decision very early in the game, which I thought it was interesting. That's something that perhaps, to me, it was a little bit of a negative. Like, the game makes you pick your basically your storyline super early in the game, and they don't give you like enough information, in my opinion, to like formulate a good decision. They just basically touch the basics, but in my opinion, it would have been nice to maybe do a couple chapters and then make your decision. But nevertheless, that's how the game unfolds. Very early on, you have to make the decision. And then after that, basically the first half of the game revolves around solving the mysteries surrounding the Church of Seiros, which you're involved, and there a lot of things are happening in the background regarding the leadership of the church. A lot of themes going on around between the religion and politics, which I thought it was a very interesting side of the story. And then the game has a second half. Again, I'm not going to spoil anything, but the second half of the game is pretty much where the house-specific storylines unfold. So if you decided to play with the Golden Deer, that's you're gonna have a different type of missions and chapters and so forth, and the same thing with the other 2 houses. So that's the one part that I'm excited to play. And again, I already started a second file with the Black Eagles, because I think they're gonna offer a very vastly different approach and views as far as their storyline. So I'm excited, but at the same time a little bit burnt out on completing the Golden Deer playthrough. It took me around 65 hours, which I know it's more than normal or than usual. I think this game can be beat around like 50 hours might be the average. So I did, however, do a lot of side quests. I believe I did over 45 of them when I checked my stats log or whatever it's called. So I did like over 45 side quests, and I did every single paralog, which are kind of like side story missions that the game throws at you. And I did every single one of them that were offered to me. That's another cool thing about Fire Emblem Three Houses, or positive or negative, depending on how you're looking at it. But depending on your actions throughout the game, you might be unlocking extra like paralogs or extra side stories. Of course, you're going to be needing a guide unless you're really good at figuring things out. So I didn't personally use a guide, so I'm sure I missed on a couple of paralogs. But I did the most I could. Every time the game offered me to do one, I decided to to do them. They're basically side missions that obviously extend your game time pretty much, but they're very interesting. They have not only do they add to the lore and to the story of the game and the characters specifically, but they also add or they also offer pretty cool rewards in terms of weapons or a lot of gold, money, and whatever. So yeah, I was very pleased with the story. As far as the game length, I think the game dragged on a little bit towards the end, but I'll cover that in my gameplay section. I just want to briefly give my thoughts on the graphics. I think the game looks great. Obviously, this is the brand new latest entry in the Fire Emblem series, so it takes advantage of the Nintendo Switch, I guess, power over the Nintendo 3DS when compared to the older games that were released on the 3DS. With that being said, however, I thought the game could have used a little bit better use of textures in some of the maps. The maps are not very varied in terms of how they look. So again, some of the textures are muddy a little bit, and but other than that, the characters, they look great. The cutscenes, they have animated cutscenes. It makes you feel like you're watching like an anime. Although I have an impression, I don't know if it was the smaller 3DS screen, but my recollection is that the anime kind of like cutscenes on the 3DS games, they looked a little bit better. I don't know if they put more quality or more, I guess, effort towards those. But I felt like the cutscenes on the Three Houses are obviously gorgeous looking, but I think they could have looked better, if that makes any sense. And then the character models and everything, they look good. They have some pretty cool designs, not only in terms of characters, but also in terms of the, I guess, costumes. Another tradition of Fire Emblem games, that how the characters are dressed, and every time you change classes, it's always exciting to see what kind of maybe new armor they're wearing or things like that. And then the students, the regular students, they have their own uniforms. The students for the monastery and all that. So I think overall the graphics are pretty good, but it would have been nice if on the 3D side of things, some of the textures could have been a little bit better looking, in my opinion. Now, as far as I'm gonna jump to the sound or the soundtrack, fantastic. I really enjoyed the voice acting. I know that's always controversial every time there's a new Fire Emblem game. There are complaints about localization and things that get lost in translation. No pun intended. But I thought it was great. There's a crap ton of recorded voice dialogue in the game, and I think the writing was excellent, at least with the Golden Deer, I guess, storyline. So the only kind of like bad thing, and I know this is kind of, it's part of the game having a I guess an avatar character, if you will. It's obviously your character doesn't really talk much, and I know that's been kind of like an ongoing thing for the previous Fire Emblem games, but I kind of wish they would get rid of that avatar option and just give you like a solid character at the beginning of the game. It's just a minor nitpick that I have with the game, because the voice acting otherwise is fantastic, and when it comes to talking in the cutscenes or making a decision, your character is always like very quiet, and just it just breaks a little bit off of the immersion in the storyline if you're having any. And then the soundtrack, fantastic. There were some really epic songs or soundtrack and in some of the levels, to the point that I already did some backdoor research, and I was able to download the soundtrack. I don't think there's anything official out there. I'm sure in Japan they have the CDs and whatnot, but here in the West there's no like official soundtrack as far as I'm concerned. But I did a little bit of internet and Googling, searching, and I was able to get the soundtrack, and I cannot wait until I load that up on my cloud to listen to the songs of this game. And now the meat and potatoes of the Fire Emblem games. Besides the story, I think the story is always important in games like this, in any RPGs, but a Fire Emblem game would not be a Fire Emblem game without its very depth and strategy based system. Being a strategy game, a tactical RPG, if you will, this game has a lot of respect for previous entries in the series, a lot of respect for the previous formulas. But with that being said, it introduces a couple of differences with the immediate previous entries in the series, which are the 3DS games. For example, they got rid of the weapon triangle, the quote-unquote rock, paper, scissors mechanics are no longer in full effect in this game. Instead, they lean heavily towards the skills based. Your characters are able to gain skills based on the type of weapons that you use and the type of magic that you use, depending on your character type. So the game does favor the use of skills, and I think you can equip maybe 4 or 5 different skills, and as you level up, you unlock a ton of skills, and it's up to you, to pick the right ones depending on your fight or not fight style, but your strategy style for the battles. So I thought that was pretty interesting and pretty fun to kind of figure it out what to use for each character. This game also has the return of weapon durability, meaning your weapons break or can break with heavy use. I think this was a little bit of a complaint among fans of the series. I think every time weapon durability is introduced, fans are always a little bit on the complaining side. It happened with Zelda Breath of the Wild. It happens with pretty much any game that has weapon durability mechanics in it. But for Fire Emblem Three Houses, I don't think it was too intrusive. I think that early in the game it was a little bit of an issue when you're low on money, but as you progress through the game and through the chapters, you're able to gather enough money and enough iron ore pieces or whatever it's called to either repair your weapons, or you can also forge your weapons and make them stronger. And then you can always just buy brand new weapons. It's a little bit on the expensive side, but if you're doing a lot of the side quests like I did, over 45 of them, and if you're doing a lot of the paralogs, and if you're fully trying to complete the maps, some of the maps do not require you to kill every enemy, but sometimes it's a good idea to try and do that, because a lot of them are holding gold or bullions, I think it's called, that you can sell for a lot of money. So money was never an issue with the game, but then again, I played this on normal difficulty. Now, and speaking of, and I want to talk one last, another, I felt like it was a new mechanic in the Fire Emblem games. There might have been something similar in the Fates, but I don't recall exactly. It's the Divine Pulse in this game, which is basically a rewind feature. And I'm not going to lie, guys, the game teaches you how to use that very early on, and I completely forgot about it like throughout my game. In fact, I don't even know how to use it. Like I don't even know if there's a specific item that you have to do, or if you have to pause the game and select an option. I've never used it personally, but it's out there. Like if you guys want to rewind some of your decisions, like if someone gets killed on your party like stupidly, or if you think unfairly and you have the permanent death turned on, I guess this is a good way to apply those divine pulses in order to avoid restarting the whole chapter. Now I was gonna move on into, did I play this with permadeath on like I usually do for Fire Emblem games, or did I just play casual mode? Well, I played this on casual, and I have to say that I am typically the one, like if someone asked me, if a newcomer to the series were to ask me, do I play it with a permadeath or with the casual mode on? And I would recommend playing with permadeath. I would always do that, because there's an added element of tension in the Fire Emblem games. It just makes you care so much for your units. It makes you, you're overly cautious. And I think it just immerses you way more into the game, and it forces you to be very intricate with the gameplay and your decisions as far as your combat, and the battles in the game. However, if someone were to ask me, how do I play Fire Emblem Three Houses, I would honestly recommend playing on casual mode the whole way, no matter if you're playing on normal, hard, or whatever difficulty, because this is the very first Fire Emblem game where I really cared for my units. As some of you may know, this game has a professor to student, storyline, where your character, your role in the game is to be the professor or the teacher for your students. And I think that just adds a whole new level of being engaged to the characters that you're teaching. And to me, it would have been completely devastating losing just one unit, because I really became attached to my students. Each one has their own personality, and that's something that the game does extremely well. So I did lose, I want to say, 2 students carelessly during the course of the normal chapters, as they call them. But I want to say the last 2 or 3 chapters are very hard, and especially the second to last chapter. There's a incredibly unfair thing that happens, or a move that one of the enemies has, and on that chapter alone, even though I was playing on normal, which is technically the easiest difficulty in the game, I lost 2 units on that map by itself. And again, if I was playing with permadeath on, I would have obviously I would have reset the game and whatnot. But if I would not play this game other than using casual mode, and the hardcore Fire Emblem fans can probably dislike this video all they want, but that's just my opinion. I really felt attached to the characters, and losing just one of them would have been a disaster for me. So I did enjoy playing this on casual, but at the same time, it's not that I still played, trying to pay as much attention as I could. I was trying to obviously complete the maps as best as I could. And in that regard, I thought the game was on the easy side. Again, I played it on normal and casual mode, so that's the easiest setting that you can go to. I did up it up a little bit on my second playthrough that I'm doing now with the Black Eagles. I started the game on hard difficulty, but I'm keeping the casual mode on, obviously, and I just want to see how hard mode deals in this game. Again, normal, I thought it was fairly easy for the most part, especially for someone like me who did a crap ton of side quests and all the paralogs. I got a lot of experience. I got to level up a lot of my units. I got a lot of money to repair my weapons and buy new ones. So, and I did get immersed a lot into the teacher activities, and that's the next point I'm gonna deal with, because I already talked a lot about the combat, but the game has a pretty big non-combat side of things in terms of gameplay, and that is just exploring the monastery. You know, you're the teacher of your of the house, and you have to manage the students that are under you, and there's a lot of activities that you can do on the monastery. It's basically broken up. Each main mission is at the end of the month. So you have 4 weeks. You basically have a calendar, and you have activities that you can do throughout the month in order to either level up your characters or gain a better relationship or status with your characters, get to know them better. You can train them so they can improve in certain areas. You can kind of like steer them away from a class so they can move on into another class, and those are pretty cool mechanics in the game that I really enjoyed. There's a ton of activities that you can do in the monastery, ranging from side quests to fishing to sharing a meal or cooking with your students. You know, sitting down with them, drinking a tea, exploring the monastery. A lot of different activities that can be done. That I had a ton of fun doing those, and I really got immersed, because it's almost like you had to do those activities to gain points with your students. The more points you gain, the better links you have with them, and that benefits you in battle. Obviously, you know, the better you know them, the better you get along with them, and they get along with each other. Obviously, the better they're gonna perform in battle, because there's a lot of mechanics in the game. Like if they're battling next to each other, their stats are boosted and all that. So very important to pay close attention to the monastery events and tasks, which, as much as I enjoy doing them, I do have to say that towards the end, maybe the last 4 chapters, it just became a little bit annoying, and that kind of hurts my overall impressions of the game. Towards the end, I just wanted to get it over with, but at the same time, you still want to boost your activities. It's just the monastery activities get old by the end, towards the end of the game, and for me personally, that point was, you know, in the last 4 chapters. I just wanted to skip those, play the main missions, and see what happens at the end, you know, what the ending would be like. So, but other than that, I did enjoy the characters. I'll give you guys my quick thoughts on the Golden Deer House characters. It is important to note that you can recruit characters from other houses as well. So, but for my playthrough, I did something. I did want to keep things real, if that makes any sense, but I only recruited one house student that wasn't from the Golden Deer. I recruited Petra, and I believe she is out of the Black Eagles house, because I wanted to have a thief early in the game, so someone to being able to unlock the chests. You know, every time there's a missions, there's a couple of chests, and I wanted to have a specific a thief class, even though I can, again, you know, you can kind of modify your own students and push them towards a class, but I wanted to have a specific thief, and Petra is kind of like the best one in the game, and no regrets. She was very useful throughout the game. Her stats are very good in terms of speed, and you know, she's insane, a lot of critical hits and whatnot, so pretty happy to have recruited her. But as I was saying, I wanted to keep things real, and my main I guess team or party was always my students, and I did recruit also one of the teachers in the academy or the knights, Catherine, and she was a beast. She had this legendary weapon. She reminded me a little bit of Ryoji in the previous Fates games, where he would just, all you have to do was send him up front and he would take care of it. Catherine is not as overpowered or OP as him, but she is pretty good, a pretty good character to have in the front lines, because she deals a lot of damage. So I did have Catherine, and then Petra, and then there was a couple other characters that join as the story progresses. But for the most part, my main team was my own students. And I really enjoyed Claude. You know, he is the leader of the Golden Deer. And by the way, the reason I chose the Golden Deer is I kind of like their background story, like the very few details that the game lets you know. I based my decision based on that, and the Golden Deer is comprised of mostly like commoner background people, like people that are not necessarily royalty, or people that are not necessarily noblemen. Like a lot of their students are just the sons or daughters of common people, like artists or merchants and things like that. So, and then Claude's personality, he's very funny and just kind of like a laid back type of chill person, whereas the other two, Edelgard and I forgot I think Dimitri, I think is the other leader of the other houses. They're very like stuck up. They're like royalty, noble people, and so I liked the humbleness of Claude, even though he's a little bit cocky and funny at the same time. I really enjoyed that, and that's why I decided to go with the Golden Deer. Now, Claude, he is a lethal archer early on in the game, and then he gets its own class later in the game. But I decided to keep him as an archer with that new class, and that's another reason why I wanted to have Golden Deer. I enjoy using archers in Fire Emblem games. I like being able to have that long range attack possibilities. And so I also made Ignatz, which I know it's not a popular choice, but I converted him into an archer. And then he turned out to be like this lethal sniper. And it's funny because Ignatz, he's kind of like this blonde, nerdy looking kid with big glasses, but he became this lethal sniper in the game, so much that he was able to like shoot arrows from like, I don't know, like 4 or 5 spaces away. So he was dealing damage from long range, and his critical hits improved, stats or whatever. And towards the end of the game, he was just making critical hit after critical hit from like 4 or 5 spaces away. So that was completely insane. I was very happy with Ignatz on how he progressed on my game. And then you had people like Hilda. She also became a very strong, powerful axe user for me, and then I converted her into a rider, a wyvern rider or whatever it's called, or a wyvern knight. So she basically had that long range or movement range, being able to be in a mounted unit. And again, she became like super crazy strong using axes of all different types. Another favorite of mine was Raphael. I'm not typically big on tank units, but he became like this great like knight or whatever, like armored unit. Like he had his shield up, and he would just go up to the front, and towards the end of the game, unless there was a magic enemy user, he would just take little to no damage because he became so strong. So Raphael was another a unit that I really enjoyed using. Leonie, she became a knight, like a horse or knight or whatever that's called. She wasn't as good because I think I kind of forced her down that path. I think she is more naturally of an archer, but that's what she did for me. And then the magic users, obviously Lysithea and Marianne. Lysithea was kind of like my dark and white magic person, and Marianne was exclusively white magic, all the healing and all that. So she was very, very helpful. Obviously, every time someone needed to be able to be healed, she had this ability to heal someone like across the map pretty much. So she did a pretty good job healing, and I was able to add Flame as my dancer. Another very useful I guess tactic, and being able to gain another move with a dancer unit. So she was also a key part of my party. And then Lysithea had the warp ability, which is extremely useful if you want to just kill a certain enemy units right away. Some of the maps have enemy units that keep spawning other enemies. And so when I unlocked that warp feature, it was a game changer, and another very useful as far as tactical advantage. But yeah, I enjoyed all the characters, and my overall conclusion for this game is that this might be my favorite Fire Emblem game. As you guys probably guessed by now, you know, me being able to do all the side quests, not all the side quests, but like over 45 of them, completing all the paralogs, and being able to play this game on casual mode because I did not want to lose any of the units. It shows that I really cared for the students. I really cared for the characters in my party, like I never did. I mean, I always did for previous Fire Emblem games, but this one was special in terms of me caring about my units. And so, yeah, this might be my favorite Fire Emblem games. You know, game combined with the monastery activities and all that. I think there was a lot of gameplay variety, and of course, then you have that replay value. You know, being able to replay the game not twice but a third time, and I believe there's like a fourth ending. I'm not sure, I need to look into that, but there might be actually a reason to play the game a fourth time, which is insane considering, you know, each playthrough takes like 50 hours on average. I think it took me 65, but I'm sure the second time around will be a little bit quicker than that. So overall, one of my favorite Fire Emblem games out there, one of my favorite games of 2019. I really enjoyed Fire Emblem, and I'm looking forward to playing. I may wait a little bit, cool down a little bit before I continue my second playthrough, but nevertheless, it's pretty exciting to have that option to come back to the game and get a different storyline revealed. But other than that, thank you guys for watching this video, and I will see you all later.